Women and men have always had their differences, but have especially differed when it comes to expressing emotions. For centuries, women have been labeled as the sensitive gender and men as the more tougher or hardcore gender. These differences have caused women to be discriminated against and for men to seem insensitive. Today, I will be sharing the different reasons I have recently learned that can cause these emotional expressivities to occur. These findings can range from a neurological standpoint to a plain prideful standpoint. Let's start by looking at the prideful standpoint. Women tend to express sensitive emotions, and men tend to express more dominant emotions, and this can be due to men being more prideful. This is explained by Deng Yaling in his Gender Differences in Emotional Response Inconsistency Between Experience and Expressivity. Within the article, there's a study that compares heart rates of the different genders and different emotions, and concluded that men and women aren't so different when it comes to emotions after all, just how they express their own emotions. Photo within the article is the findings suggest that when watching videos that induce an emotional response, men often have more intense emotional experiences, whereas women have higher emotional expressivity. In addition, gender differences depend on the specific emotion type but not the valence. These two quotes within the article prove that women and men still feel the same emotions in the same way, but just have different intensities and just also express their own emotions differently. Also quoted within the article is despite substantial efforts in gender differences and emotional responses over the past several decades, no consensus as to whether women are more emotional than men have been reached. Going on with the statement of pride, that is proven by Brebner John in his Gender and Emotions, Personality and Individual Differences article. There's another within the article there's another study taking place that has two groups, one Australian and the other is international. Gender differences in self-reports of the frequency and intensity of recently experiencing 8 emotions and were assessed by t-tests. Quoted within the article is in the Australian group, statistically significant differences between the genders were found in the frequency of affection, anger, fear, joy, sadness, with female scoring higher within those emotions and male scored higher in pride. Also quoted within the article is for the international sample, significant gender differences for the frequency of affection, anger, contentment, fear, joy, and sadness were found with females scoring higher than males. Gender differences in intensity were found for all of the emotions except pride, with males scoring higher than females. This shows how the emotions of affection, anger, fear, joy, and sadness are higher scored in women, and pride is higher scored in men in almost everywhere. So the men having higher pride can cause them to suppress sensitive emotions easier. Now let's look at the neurological standpoint. The causes the causes of these expressivities can also be induced by the brain's neurological functions. This is explained by Downthreat Lyry's article called "Men and Women Experience Happiness Differently." Here's why. The mirror neurons in the brain, when expressing emotions, is higher in women than in men. Quoted within the article is in numerous studies, females score higher than males in standard tests of emotion recognition, social sensitivity, and empathy. Also quoted within the same article is neuroimaging studies have investigated these findings further and discovered that females utilize more areas of the brain that contain mirror neurons than men do when processing their emotions. Mirror neurons allow us to experience the world from other people's perspectives to understand their actions and intentions. This may explain why women can experience a deeper sadness than men do. Men's neurological function makes it easier for men to suppress those sensitive emotions as well as pride. uh, but us being able to reflect on others' emotions as women cause cause us to have a downfall because it we tend to have higher rates in depression due to these expressivities, but also experience a more intense happiness than men, which is also explained by Downthright Lowry's article, and it is quoted. Studies have found in particular that women express more pro social emotions such as gratitude, which has been linked to greater happiness. This supports the theory that women's happiness is more dependent on relationships than men's. Women tend to want to make others happy so much that uh, it affects our own emotions in sometimes a negative way. Let's see how these emotions affect us within society. These emotional differences have caused society to undermine women and almost always put men in leadership positions before women. A good example of this is the Hillary Clinton election. Also, a downturn of these emotional expressivities is that men can seem insensitive, and this can cause the two genders to clash heads when it comes to relationships or even business agreements as well. There might be a discriminative factor involved that a woman might feel is involved. In conclusion, men and women still have the same emotions, we just express each emotion differently, and we choose which ones to express as well. Men's pride men's pride and neurological makeup cause them to seem insensitive, even though they may not be at all. Women are somewhat happier and are emotional yet just as capable.